Yeah, on the 4th I saw him, he was wearing a jean jacket with an American flag, American flag on it. I was like, yeah, I can get into that. So I'm here live at the Seth Rich press conference that's about to begin, and I've got with me Dr. Jerome Corsi. Doctor, thank you for joining me on the first ever broadcast from this remote Skype system. How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very pleased to be with you, Jason. Congratulations on getting this really unique Skype remote set up.
Thank you, Doctor. So we're just waiting for Jack Berkman to come in. He's going to be leading the press conference. What we've heard so far is that there are new witnesses who have come forward, apparently with information about the murderers, purportedly going to name the murderers. Now, Doctor, I've been saying that I do not believe that Seth Rich is dead. We still have not seen an autopsy or a death certificate.
Well, we probably differ in that. I think he is dead. But, you know, again, what I know is that the Washington, D.C. police suppressed the release of a lot of the investigative public information that could have been made public, would have helped to resolve a lot of these questions. How many people are in the room there today, Jason?
Well, it's a pretty good turnout. We've got, I'd say, about 20 people or so here.
Any idea where they're from? Has anybody identified themselves, or do you recognize any of the press?
A few of the people I do recognize, but I think we can maybe have some words with them after the conference begins. I saw Alicia Poe, who I think is with your old alma mater, World News Daily, if I'm not mistaken.
World Net Daily.
World Net Daily, sorry.
And, okay, and so we've got, there are various people who are skeptical of the announcement today, and they're going to be wanting to see what the proof is that, they've identified, that Berkman's identified the actual killers.
Right.
So it's going to be a very interesting hearing to see exactly what kind of proof they bring forward.
Absolutely. Now, Doctor, I was speaking earlier with Thomas Paine of True Pundit, and there's apparently been some mention of DEA involvement. So that's the first we've heard of any federal agency, well, other than the FBI, of course. There was word that some weapon was stolen from an FBI car the night of the shooting. I found that part of the story very difficult to believe, Doctor. FBI weapons are very secure in their vehicles. Why would someone steal an FBI gun and then shoot someone to steal nothing?
Well, it appeared that the FBI gun was stolen out of the car, but it was unrelated to the shooting. It was not tied in together with the shooting of Seth Rich. That's another one of the really bizarre circumstances in this case, that there was a car parked and broken into and an FBI weapon stolen. But, we've never had much of an explanation of what really happened or why it was stolen or what were the details in it.
Right.
So that's part of the investigation as well. And then, the key issue here and why this is so important is that what's at stake here is the idea of whether or not Seth Rich was the one who, as an employee of the Democratic National Committee, an IT specialist, put a thumb drive into the DNC server and stole the emails that ultimately got to WikiLeaks, or whether it was Russians who hacked into the system.
Right.
And this whole Russian collusion argument keyed initially on the argument, the CrowdStrike, which was a very heavily connected to the Democrats, funded by Eric Schmidt and Google and others on the left side of the spectrum, came in and said it was Russia that had hacked the DNC, and that's where this whole FBI, DOJ investigation got started of, Donald Trump colluding with Russia.
Right.
The argument was that Donald Trump made some kind of a quid pro quo deal where he was going to say reduce sanctions if only the Russians would break into the DNC and steal these emails and give them to WikiLeaks. Now,
Right.
that's always seemed to me to be pretty preposterous. But,
Agreed.
if it turns out that Seth Rich was the culprit, and we have clear evidence of that, and it was not a Russian hack, then I think we've got a whole new narrative here, which is going to, raise additional questions as to why Mueller's investigation was started in the first place.
Right.
And Julian Assange has maintained repeatedly that it was.
Oh, doctor, they're
Seth
about to
Rich.
begin.
All right, well, let's listen and hear what they have to say.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. It's on a hot summer day. Thanks to everyone for coming. In the long 2-year investigation of the murder of Seth Rich, I think we finally have some news. To quote our friend Winston Churchill, it's not the end. It may not even be the beginning of the end, but I think for sure it's the end of the beginning. With me here today is Frank Whalen, who's a former NYPD homicide detective with whom we've been working for some time. Frank will speak to you in just a moment. I really mean it when I say thanks for being here, because the press have been our partners on this matter from the day we launched the investigation way back in November of 2016, just a few months after Seth was killed. Without you guys, we have very little means of getting witnesses to come forth. It's only press coverage that brings people out of the woodwork, and ultimately it was probably press coverage that brought this witness today. This witness will call in and join us via speakerphone after Frank speaks. I will give you a brief synopsis of what we will present today.
And this is Jack
We now believe that Seth Rich was killed by an agent, a current agent of the DEA and an agent of the ATF. Now, this is consistent with what was on the video, that there were 2 assailants. And indeed, everybody investigating this case, including the DC police, from the outset, had believed there were 2 assailants that evening, that morning. Another thing that, well, there are many reasons, and Frank will tell you why we believe this witness is very, very credible. One of the reasons we believe, and I'll share this with you, as many of you know, in March of this year, 4 months ago, I was shot by a man named Kevin Doherty, who is currently in the Arlington County Detention and charged with 3 felony counts for that crime. This witness had never heard of Kevin Doherty. When we mentioned the name, when Frank and others mentioned the name Kevin Doherty to him, he said, wait a minute, I know Kevin Doherty. Kevin Doherty was associated with the 2 people that he's talking about here who shot Seth. And Frank will tell you more about that, but he hadn't heard that I had been shot, and yet he knew the name Kevin Doherty. That was an enormous credibility builder for us. We'll also talk about, now, one of the things you have to understand about these 2 people we're talking about here today, this is the unit level of what has happened. What I would stress to you is, this evidence is consistent with any number of theories out there about who at a higher level may have ordered this. And we'll talk as the hour goes on here a little more about that. We're less clear about who at a higher level was involved in this. But the picture is becoming clearer and clearer at the unit level about what happened to Seth. So it's been a long 2 years. Again, thanks to all of you for all you've done. Thanks for staying on the story. Thanks for being here today. And without further ado, I'll give you my friend Frank Whalen.
Afternoon. My name is Frank Whalen. I'm a 22-year veteran of the NYPD, retired detective sergeant. My last 2 years on the job, I was in the Brooklyn South homicide squad. I connected with Matt. I got interested in this case over a year ago, and I got connected with Matt Couch in American First Media about a little over a year ago. And I also am a licensed private investigator in New York. There's about 10 members of our group, volunteers for America, for First Media. Everybody has their own specialty. Some are better computer guys, some are writers, some are investigators like myself and Bill Pierce. But if it wasn't for Matt Couch, I wouldn't be here. His level of commitment and all the things that he's been able to gather sources. Sources have come to him, including this one today. We have a number of sources that give us information. We vet it as much as we can, and when we think it's credible, we put it out there. You can all go to America First Media's site. It's af-mg.com. And all the information that we've recovered from sources and vetted is all in that website. Today we're here, like I said, we have a number of sources that are giving us information, including the information about Kevin Doherty and his affiliation with the people we were looking at regarding this incident. So when we had our source come forward and be able to put these people together, obviously our light bulb went off, and we vetted this individual as we do all our sources, and we try and get this information right. We don't just throw it out there. We've had this information for a number of months. We've approached people in the Rayburn building regarding this, and as of yet, no one's acted on it. Obviously, the protection of our sources and methods are important. So we're doing this on no budget. We're all volunteers. We don't get paid. We just believe in the case, and that it should be solved. In this particular case, we have one of our sources that's going to get on the phone today and give you the story related to information that he gave to us. We've been able to, vet his story where we believe it's credible information and should be acted upon by someone. We don't have the means to do anything else other than investigate the information that he has given us. So he'll be calling in a few minutes, and he'll give you the scenario of what he knows, his part of it. Like I said, we have a number of sources here. He's just one piece of it. And I know there's a lot of people that other people have investigated this, but the people come forward to Matt because of his sincerity and belief and commitment to trying to get to the end of this case. So I don't know.
Frank, you know what you might do? If you, before the witness calls in, why don't you take him through the basics, maybe a brief outline of what the witness would say.
All right, basically the witness said that he overheard conversations with these gentlemen bragging about the Seth Rich murder. And that's what put him on it. He didn't really know anything about it. He looked into it on his own. And when he saw Matt Couch and the other group of ours, looking into this thing, he was afraid that we were going to go down a path that we may get injured. So that's what made this particular witness come forward. Other people that have given us information are just trying to help out. This gentleman thought enough of Matt and his group and our group that he was worried that we were getting, our information was spot on, and that we may run into a problem at that point. So that's why he came forward. Basically, his information is that that they were doing something with emails, related to Hillary Clinton. They were altering the emails. These are people that are in government that have access to these things, and they were altering emails. And when Seth Rich downloaded these emails, they were afraid if investigations take place that they would be discovered. Now, the individuals that we know were involved in this were law enforcement, and that they were working with Rob Rosenstein in Baltimore, and they are trusted members of his group. So when this thing happened, they were afraid that if an investigation took place, that they'd be discovered that they were altering these emails. So it had nothing to do with WikiLeaks putting them out. It just generated a lot of attention, in which they were afraid to be discovered. He'll go into more detail when he calls about this.
We have broader investigations underway now as to what may have been Rosenstein's involvement in this, and what is his exact relationship with these two people. Broader investigations are underway as we speak. Frank, why don't we do this? Why don't you let's take a 5-minute break for coffee and restroom, whatever you need, and then we will coordinate with our witness, and we will rejoin.
Okay, well, Jason, the new information, I mean, first of all, the Gateway pundit yesterday reported much of this and set this up pretty much as it's been introduced. If there's a witness we're going to hear from. What's new is that they had not been disclosed that these two alleged shooters were involved with Rod Rosenstein in Maryland. Now, if that's the case, and Rosenstein is implicated in the Seth Rich murder, if this turns out to be credible, that's going to be another bombshell aspect of the press conference.
That would certainly be an explosive development, Doctor.
And the second thing that was new here to me was that this ATF and DEA agent who allegedly did the shooting were involved in altering emails from the DNC, and were evidently not really specifically concerned that the leaks or the stealing of the emails had gone to WikiLeaks. Now, I don't recall hearing anything about DNC emails being altered. This would also be new, and I'm not sure how they were being altered or why they were being altered, but that's again pretty explosive. If government officials were involved in altering DNC emails, and these it were somehow or other related to or part of Rod Rosenstein's operation in Maryland, if that's all credible, that's going to add a lot of new questions as to why the emails were being altered and why government officials under Rod Rosenstein were involved.
It's a substantial if, wouldn't you say, Doctor?
Well, we haven't heard the evidence yet. I mean, this is, again, no one has seen the surveillance film in the public. The surveillance film from reports evidently shows, pants cuff, or that there's two men involved in the shooting, but doesn't evidently give a clear picture of either of the two assailants. But it identified that there were two. And again, this, the importance of the surveillance tape that's not seen has not been emphasized to date in all of the writing been done about Seth Rich.
Right.
There's a lot of evidence in the Seth Rich case that has not been seen. I mean, there are claims that when he was initially shot, that he could survive. And, he was at the hospital, he's being operated on, and again, there's much we just don't know. We didn't, for a long time, even know which hospital he'd been brought to.
Right. Right.
Because,
Doctor, the notion of the emails being altered, it takes me back to some claims that were made by Kurt Eichenwald back in October of 2016 at the very outset of the election, and he was saying that Donald Trump was reading an altered email, but we've seen no forensic evidence that the emails were altered. Haven't they been verified by high-level specialists as being unaltered?
well, the ones that were released by WikiLeaks, some of them WikiLeaks themselves even verified that they were authentic.
Right.
And I don't think any of the ones that have been published have been claimed to have been altered. Now, I guess it's possible that it could be authentic in that the altered version was the one stolen, and that was the one in the file against which the stolen version was authenticated.
In person, right?
Well,
There's some more conversation happening here, Doctor. Let's listen in.
Let's catch that.
whether to bring him in mass or bagged or to have him call, and we went back and forth, and this is what he's most comfortable with. In the coming weeks, you'll learn a lot more about the witness. We have extensive audio files of the witness. We have hours and hours of audio files with this guy. And I think you'll find him very credible. And in the coming weeks, we're going to release a lot more about him.
Why not release it now?
he's concerned for his safety.
But like, is that going to change in 3 weeks from now?
One of the problems is this guy lives in the same area as these two alleged assailants, and it's just it's a tough situation. So we have to manage it. We have to watch out for him and his family, and we're doing that.
Jack, do Seth's parents know about this development?
Not for me. Not for me. Sadly, I love the family, but we're not. You may know we haven't been on speaking terms in a while. I love them. I think they're great. I mean, all of this is being done in honor of Seth, and I think Joel and Mary Rich are great people. But you know, this is tough. This is tough. I understand. This is tough. You know, you go from a situation where you're in Omaha, and all of a sudden, extras beating on your door. You know, it's hard.
Why are you no longer on speaking terms with them, Jack?
Oh, kind of we sued the mayor and the DC police about a year and a half ago, and they didn't really approve of that. I wanted to get the ballistics report, I wanted to get the coroner's report, I wanted to get the other Flagler video, but they didn't want me to do that. It's just, you know, they really wanted my role limited to really offering them a reward and then working with the DC police. The problem is, frankly, we weren't satisfied with what the DC police were doing. I didn't think they were doing much of anything. I thought it had gone into the cold. We did work with them for about a month, but then it was clear to me this thing gone into the cold case file. And I made a commitment, and I just can't walk away. And I had to do what I had to do.
Did you get any of that information from the DC police?
Well, we worked with them. I remember it's a while back. I think we did a press conference with Joel and Mary Rich in November of 16. And as memory serves, like in December of 16, January of 17, we were working with the DC police. But it's been a long time. Needless to say, it's been a long, long time.
But to be clear, have you seen the autopsy report or any ballistics evidence?
No, nobody has. That's why we sued them. I begged them to turn them over. I couldn't figure out why. I mean, what I told the mayor was, look, she said, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're working with other conspiracy theorists. Okay, I said, look, set this aside. I said, if you do nothing more than release the ballistics report in this case, you can prove or disprove any of the 14 conspiracy theories that are out there. I said, why wouldn't... Now, the argument on the other side is that, well, if you release it and you have a defendant down the road, they might have trouble discovering that, so you're taking away a natural advantage of the prosecution. That's the standard argument, but it's a very weak argument in this case when you have an entire city that's trying to help solve a murder. There's no reason not to release the coroner's report, medical examiner's report, and the ballistics. I just can't think of any, because frankly, convictions in this case, I'll tell you, are going to be very difficult. We're already at the 2-year point. Even if arrests were made a few months from now, you'd be at the 3-year point before anybody was taking evidence. I can tell you, getting a conviction is going to be real tough. That's not what this is about. This is about justice. It's about finding out for the family and for the city of Washington and this area who did it.
Rod Wheeler has said that an autopsy was never done. The report doesn't exist.
That I can't speak to, because all I did was I tried to get it through litigation. I failed, but I don't know. He may be right. I have no idea.
Do you have any information as to why Kathy Lanier left her position as chief of police only weeks after this alleged murder?
No idea. It's one of the very suspicious and bizarre coincidences that surround this. I mean, I can tell you all, as members of the press, I don't know where, you guys probably have as many different opinions on this personally as there are out there, but I can tell you, you now have over $400,000 in reward money from a variety of people, including me, that's out on the street. If this thing were in the street, as the parents believe, the DC police believe, I guarantee you there would be somebody come forth in 2 years. It's almost a virtual impossibility that you would not have somebody come forth if this were a street shooting with that kind of money. In the streets of DC, that's real money. This is not the Upper East Side of New York.
Will this witness be entitled to receive any reward money, Jack?
Yes, it depends. It just depends where it leads. We're corroborating the witness, possibly. We're vetting, we're corroborating, we think he's credible. The answer is yes, definitely. If this could lead somewhere, you bet. At least for me. The others, you got to talk to the others. I don't know what conditions are on other rewards. There's 4 or 5 people involved.
Where would this need to lead to get reward money?
Well, it's a good question. We never really defined, we just never really defined all of that. I would like to see an arrest made. I think at a minimum you see an arrest made. I want to see an arrest. If I could see an arrest, I think I would probably pay the reward. But I like what I'm seeing from this witness. Like I say, I believe he's credible. He's helped us enormously. And I think I've been a lawyer a long time. And
He's trying to pull
Okay.
it, it keeps getting bounced back.
let's see.
Okay, the witnesses can.
Let's see, did he try
Right now.
2274?
Yeah,
Okay, give me one moment. Tell him to hold on, I'll be back.
he's on his phone at the front desk.
Hang on, Dave.
Doctor, I'm going to try to reposition my microphone to see if I can't get a better audio track for us.
All right, that's fine.
I'll be back in just a moment. It's very unlikely that people can hear me, but my microphone is over there by the phone. And when the witness gets on the line, we should have good, clear audio. Can you hear me, Doctor?
Not as well as I could before.
Yeah, my microphone is across the room. So if you want to hear some commentary, I'll let you know when the witness comes on.
Well, I'm just, letting you get positioned. It's again, it's still pretty murky at this point as to what the evidence is and why it's credible. They seem to think that this Doherty ties into established credibility, and I'm waiting to see why they think that. I mean, Frank Whalen made it clear that he believes that they vetted this witness, they believe in the witness. He has evidence that substantiates his claims. It's going to be slowly released. We're going to need to see the evidence of what the witness has that corroborates all the claims made. The police have said that the video identifies the pant legs of two men, and that's all anybody knows. There were two men involved in the killing that night. And again, this Doherty, the entire situation is Berkman was rejected by the family. The family got a PR specialist helping them that immediately shut down the family's investigation. The DNC has not wanted this case investigated, and it's been a complete cover-up. Now, I agree with Whalen that if it had been just a street shooting, probably someone would have come forward to claim the award because someone in the street, a gang member or whatever, would have talked. But again, that's not 100% provable. I mean, when no one saw the shooting, and there was no one was apprehended at the site. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this all plays out. Doherty was hired to help get to the bottom of the case. He claims to have been a special agent and criminal investigator in the intelligence community. He's kind of a shadowy figure himself. And he's supposed to be acquainted with the two government employees that killed Rich, according to Berkman. But again, how all this ties together to establish credibility, that the witness supposedly didn't know that it was Doherty who shot Berkman, and somehow that helps establish his credibility.
Yeah, it's an explosive allegation, if true. Okay, so Jack Berkman is entering the room again now. We're going to see if the witness is ready to come on the phone.
Okay, you've got a much better position now in the room.
microphone. The microphone's right up there, so I can't stay close to it, unfortunately.
You can't stay up closer to the front of the room, Jason?
Let's see if I can. Anybody sitting here? Thanks.
Yeah, why don't you sit right there? That's good. That's much better.
So many wires connecting me here. It's difficult to move around.
Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, we're solving our technical problem.
I mean, if you have an iPhone, what do you have?
I'm sympathetic to technical problems because they happen frequently.
Okay, are you free?
So, for those who are just tuning in, we're here at the press conference, the Seth Rich press conference being held by Jack Berkman. He's presenting a new witness today who has made an explosive claim that a DEA agent and an ATF agent were the two to murder Seth Rich. I apologize for the audio quality right now. My microphone is next to the phone as we await a call from a new witness.
Why don't you put your speaker on? I have you calling you. Probably call you on a restricted number. Is the speaker on?
I don't know how loud that's going to be, Jack.
You turn it up, turn the volume up.
Yeah, it's all the way up.
Where's the speaker on?
Yeah, volume's all the way
Okay.
up.
Is this our witness?
Hold on, you have to put it on speaker.
Okay, put it on speaker. Hold on a moment. Is this Luke?
Yes.
We're calling you Luke for lack of a better name right now. Can I call you Luke?
Please do.
Okay, we have you on a cell phone speaker. We had some technical difficulties with the switchboard here at the Holiday Inn, but we react and adapt, the slogan of the Marine Corps, even though I'm not a Marine. Luke, thank you for taking time. I've explained to the press, we've got a pretty full room of press here. Frank has spoken, and you're now live on air here with our press corps. I wanted to, if you could take us through and take your time, if you could kind of tell us the basic story of Seth and these two agents and how it came to be with you, I'd be grateful.
Over my background, very briefly, very in general, obviously.
Take your time.
It's military. Second half of that career is attached to the intelligence community. I maintained that connection into the civilian world. Ended up as a consultant, mostly in domestic and foreign terrorists. That's how I came to be in contact with the Department of Justice in Baltimore for many years. The people involved in this death I know well, both professionally and personally.
Okay, bear with us one second. I'm going to let the press, we're just going to reposition here better for sound quality. Bear with us, Luke. Bear with us, sorry. I'm going to move this. We're dealing with technical issues here. If you can all maybe crowd around here, that would be great. We'll have a huddle. We'll have a team huddle here. We're doing this the old-fashioned way. We got you on a speaker on a cell phone. All right, I think everybody's close enough. Okay, Luke, go right ahead.
All right. First, let me say thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Burton and Mr. Whalen. Also, there's been quite a few people online recently concerned over our safety and offered their prayers. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That's our pleasure.
People involved with it. I do not know Seth Rich. I've never met him, never dealt with him. I hadn't known the name until late 2016 when these people were bragging about what they had done, how they got away with everything. And this is an accumulation of multiple conversations held with other people in front of me or in front of me, and other people I know. There were 3 people that night. Now, they had been surveilling him because of his computer breach They knew it. They knew what he had done. It was too close for comfort. They believed that they were under investigation. They had monitored quite a few things. They were into emails and into the computer systems. And when this happened, it set off all their bells and whistles. They wanted to know immediately who he was, what he was doing. This was a large, he went in, Seth Rich went in and grabbed a bunch of emails.
And tell us briefly, not to interrupt you, Luke, if you could, tell us just briefly, and of course no names, but tell us about the backgrounds of these. One is DEA, one is ATF, am I correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about these guys to the extent you can, and if you can't, I understand, and then tell us how you initially came upon this information.
Well, they were bragging about it. That's when I first heard the name. Didn't know anything about that side, what they were doing. They were bragging about it. They bragged about it prior to this, before the name came up. And talked through it. I did some research, found out what they were talking about through my channels. And they had details that triggered most of this. They had details about what happened the night leading up to it, the actual act, what occurred right afterwards, and why. It wasn't hard for me to figure out why, involved with the computers, the emails, and their manipulation of those. Like I said, when he did this, there was a breach, something. Whether or not he gave anything WikiLeaks, I have no idea. If that was his intent or if it actually happened. But going into the system that they had control of set off everything. And when he grabbed that many, they assumed it was an investigation. For approximately a week to 2 weeks prior to the act itself, the murder, he was being surveilled to one degree or another. That's how they knew he had this thumb drive that they wanted.
Let me ask you, Luke, not to interrupt you again, why would he have had that thumb drive on him late at night? He was killed in the early morning hours of July 10th. Any sense of why it would be on him at that hour? That's a question I'm sure a lot of the press will have.
Sorry. According to him, he never let it out of sight. According to them, he always had it on him.
Okay.
He wouldn't leave it at home, work, anything. He always kept it with him.
Okay.
Which to them necessitated a physical confrontation to get it quickly.
Do you know what happened that night? What do we know about what happened and the nature of the shooting? Do we know anything about the act that night? The actual act?
There were 3 people involved. 2 you mentioned, another.
Oh, there was another. Okay, so we have there's a DEA guy, there's an ATF guy. Who was the third? Briefly, to the extent you can say.
At that point, probably a civilian, or same person would be an ex-agent and friend of theirs.
I see. Now let me ask you this question, if I may. Tell us about, a lot of people here, we're local in Arlington, we're roughly where the spot where I was shot. We're about 1,000 yards from where I was shot by Kevin Doherty. Tell us, what was the relationship with Doherty with these people?
According to him, it's hard to believe anything he said. He had a super secret background. Everything then, this didn't play out well to people who actually did. It's too easy to check. But it was always a different story with him. But he was an ex-agent, Department of Energy, I believe. He also claimed Marine Service. But he was their gopher, hang around. They sent him for the dirty work, for the jobs they didn't do. And he would do any of them, just hoping that they would put in a good word, get him hired on one agency or another.
See, of course, that's a link, that piece of evidence there. My feeling, Luke, is that puts together, this is just my, just guessing, but that's a piece of evidence, I think, and I'm sure the press will have a lot of questions in this regard, that puts together a lot of this, because, you know, the question would be, did Doherty, just because of the dispute I had with him, get so crazy that he shot me, or, well, obviously anybody pulling a trigger is half nuts, or did he have some motive, and was he a plant? We don't know. Any insights you might have on that?
With your assault?
Yes, or how the whole thing fits together, if at all.
Whether they manipulated him in some fashion. He did that every day. I mean, they would send him out for the dumbest stuff, and he would do it. Behind his back, they just laughed. He was never going to get a job from them.
Right.
But they would let on to that.
Let me ask you this. Can you give us a sense, now you came upon this information, can you give us, and I know you have to be very careful, can you give us a sense of just this, how you came across this, in broad strokes, the type of people you heard this from, just in very broad strokes, whatever you're comfortable with?
Very broad strokes. There was a group of people who worked for Rod Rosenstein in Baltimore.
When Rosenstein was U.S. Attorney in Maryland.
Correct. And he was there for quite a while, of course.
Yes.
And they were, this was his, I'm sorry, I'm at work. This was his dirty trick squad. These were all people who owed their careers, many times their freedom, to him looking the other way or helping them out on cases when they were compromised. They're all dirty cops, one degree or another. And he exploited that a lot.
What do you think do you know anything about why Rosenstein, what was his concern? Do we know anything about his involvement? I mean, did he discuss the shooting of Seth with these people? Can you shed some light on what may have been his involvement, if any?
If he was not the person who authorized it, then he was certainly their protection on the other end. He was their protection for everything. This is why they felt open and free to discuss it, to brag about it. It wasn't until later when he received his appointment as deputy AG and the shine was off a bit that they felt that, their protection was waning, and they started coming back around, say anything, who knows this, did you repeat anything, that type of situation. They wanted to know their exposure. So if he was not the one who authorized it, then he certainly knew about it on the other side, was their protection, and it was because of his activities that it occurred.
What else, other salient points? What else should we know about this? All of this?
Well, there were details of the night that they talked about. There were people involved overall, generally. There have been rumors that it was MS-13. It wasn't. It's interesting that rumor popped up in the very beginning because the one DEA personnel is a so-called gang expert who specializes in MS-13. But leave that there. There was rumors that it was the Russians. It wasn't, although there's a Russian tie-in because of the information sharing between Rod Rosenstein's team, all the Bitcoin and money laundering going in and out of Russia. There's also that this was Hillary Clinton, Democrats, Schultz, the Democrats had him killed. All the people involved, the shooters, Rod, of course, the people who planned the surveillance, they're all Republican. So it wasn't. When you understand the dynamic behind it and why, they weren't necessarily really Republicans either.
Let me ask you this.
Their own control.
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. Tell us more about the thumb drive and what was the business. Tell us, if you can talk more about the thumb drive Seth was carrying and a little more about why these two agents and others, or three, were preoccupied with the thumb drive. The press will probably have questions.
All right. This goes back many years. This goes back at least 15 years. It began, they say information sharing, it's actually information control. The DOJ, they started just manipulating cases. When you have privileged information, you can withhold some selective prosecution, make a case go one way or the other. It benefits you, your friends. There's also next step up where you could share that information for your own personal or professional profit. Now moving to the computer side, where back prior to Ms. Clinton ran for election the first time President Obama was elected. they got into the computer systems heavily then. Within 3 months of her servers being up, her private servers, they were already in there, copying everything, listening, and anyone who logged in or used it, they went into that system. It just spread from there. They could monitor everything. They were initially just monitoring and copying emails. They then began to alter them, delay them, alter them, change classification levels. And the experts they had were extremely gifted at doing this. It's what they did for their job, and they had all the resources of government to disposal. Well, this continued throughout the Obama White House period, and then honestly, everyone thought Mrs. Clinton was going to win this previous election, so Rod Rosenstein pulled out all the stops. He knew that they have a certain animosity. They don't like each other.
Rosenstein and Hillary Clinton.
Correct. They have a history of legal and personal and behind closed doors. It's just very nasty about it.
Was he, in other words, is your feeling that Rosenstein may have been trying to curry favor with the person he believed would be the next president?
No, because Rosenstein's control was on both sides. They wanted control of everything. The law is the altar he bows down to, and he will force everyone to do so.
I see.
He wanted to ensure survival. They have been manipulating or getting dirt or planting dirt, manufacturing it against the threes, as they call it, the threes. These are Title III judges appointed under Article III Constitution, Supreme Court, federal judges, things like that. There aren't many. There's about 120 total, and if you can control them or the majority of them, many of them don't know just how much they've been compromised or that they've been compromised at all. But they haven't. If they couldn't get to one of them, they get to a family member. So we'll keep it quiet, but you always won. It's the network they built. It really got bad in 2006 when the National Security Division of the DOJ came into play. And then they got access to a much wider thing. It became common practice for cases in any agency, FBI, CIA, anything, to be brought to a national security lawyer and discussed about how to proceed, or proceed this way or that way. And they got so much more information, began using it to their own survival, their own benefit. Their object was, they didn't care who was in the White House as much as they wanted control of them. They wanted control of the DOJ, the law. You can bring a president down with a lawyer, with a judge, you control them. So that was the control they were seeking.
Why don't we do this? At this point, I'm sure everybody has questions. Let's open it up to questions from the floor for Luke.
Should I get up to the phone or?
Please, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It'd be helpful.
Hi, Luke. How you doing? Will Summer at the Daily Beast. I guess the most obvious question is, why should anyone believe what you're saying? Like, you're not here. We've seen no evidence that you're at all connected to law enforcement, or no. I mean, you could literally be any guy that Jack might have put someone up to this. Like, what is the proof we have that any of this is true? Thanks.
Oh, certainly not. Understandable. Evidence has been turned over. Testimony has been given to people who have vetted it. I've been polygraphed. I provided this testimony, so that has been checked there, and there's a lot more available. It's just bogged down. It goes beyond what you might get off of open source and put together an interesting story. There's the times, the dates, the places, the addresses, the individual players in different countries, the bank routing numbers where they launder the money. It's all available. It's just.
Luke, let me ask you this. Is there anything more, for Will's purposes here, just following up on his question, is there anything more, and if there isn't, I understand, is there anything more in broad strokes, in the very broadest of strokes at least, you could tell us about the people from whom you got the core information about this? Is there anything you can tell us?
The people involved that night, 2 of the 3, the computer expert that ultimately ended up with the thumb drive, and it also came in from one other side, someone else in the periphery that night. was able to corroborate some things through a mutual friend. But the people actually involved in the act were discussing it.
Is Luke?
Other questions?
Luke, are you a federal agent?
The question, Luke, is the press is asking, are you a federal agent?
No, I was more on the intelligence side. I don't want to say anymore.
He said no, he worked in intelligence.
Was the thumb drive inside the Seth's watch?
The question is, was the thumb drive inside Seth's watch, to your knowledge?
Is that why it was, they said it was ripped all the time?
No. It had to be larger than that. I didn't see the physical thumb drive itself, but it wasn't just an SD card, I don't believe. I believe it's the whole thumb drive in the pocket.
The reason I think the reporter asked that question, his watch was torn that night. His watch was ripped, torn, and so I think that's the genesis of
Right,
that.
there was a rumor that there's a secret compartment and you can't have watches with those, so I just wondered.
Why are you talking to a room full of media and not talking to investigators with the DC Police Department right now?
I can answer that if you don't mind. I can answer that for Luke.
I'd like him to answer it first. Is that okay, Frank?
Sure, but Luke, the question was, why are you talking, Scott from Channel 7 asked,
He doesn't know the genesis of what we've been trying to do. We've approached people in the Ray Barn building. They have access to this information. They just haven't acted on it. He doesn't know any of that. Probably
I have tried to seek out law enforcement when any agency you go to, you file a report to someone if these people you worked with and trust, eventually goes to the DOJ for investigation for filing. And it won't go very far until it gets back to Rod. It would have to be something beyond him, something besides that channel to explain everything, to show the rest.
But,
So,
question?
but have you talked to the DC police? I mean, they're not federal, so it wouldn't go back to the DOJ.
Question is, have you talked to the DC police?
I have not, but I'm sure it would in some fashion. I don't know.
Have you ever tried to
No, I
reach
have
out
not
to
talked
the
to the
parents?
DC police.
So you're interested in talking to the DC Police if they approach you, if Jack sets it up and they approach you?
Well, there's no safety. You need safety of some type. This has already gone far into dangers of not this particular conversation, but exposure has already happened. So we do have to be careful. I would not relish talking to any legitimate investigator, especially if there's protection involved. So we can.
I guess Scott's question is, if we could set up a clandestine meeting with the DC police where no one would know it was occurring, when or where, et cetera, would you be willing to do that? That's the question.
Yes, like I said, if it was safe.
Okay?
Why do we expect the DC police would investigate anything now? For 2 years, they seem to be suppressing the investigation. They wouldn't seem to have any interest in meeting.
Well, it's probably more a question for me than Luke. I agree with you. I think you're right. I mean, it's just, my belief, for whatever it's worth, is that this thing's gone into the cold case file. It goes back to the lawsuit we filed a year ago. I can't imagine why anybody would resist on the ballistics report. I mean, if the police have their heart in solving this case, and you have all these people working to help, why would they resist on ballistics and even the medical examiner's report? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me.
And Jack, why have you taken such a personal interest in this case?
Oh, really just from what I said at the outset, and that is that I view us all as one big political fraternity. I mean, Seth may have been a far left-wing Democrat, I'm a far right-wing Republican, but this could have happened to any one of the young men or women who work for me. And we're one big family in D.C., and I just feel a compulsion to help. I have to do some good for the world.
I think that sort of reneged the question of, if you have a witness who's willing to talk to DC police, why are you talking to press first?
Well, it goes back to the other gentleman's question here, in that all of us involved, we have tried extensively to, even after the lawsuit, I have tried to work with them. It's just, unfortunately, the chief of police and the mayor are done talking to me. We have tried. Trust me, we have tried. It's on their end, not our end. I'm happy to sit down with them anywhere, anytime, any place, to share what we have, to work with them.
I'd like to see the other video. I'd like to see ballistics. We'll work with them in any way, shape, or form. We would love to. You have to put those questions to the chief. It's his decision.
If you're saying that these two people were involved and you're saying they're already in danger, what's the reason at this point for not just giving their names?
Did you hear the question, Luke? The question is if you say you're already in danger and you're giving these 2 or 3 people who were involved, reporter would like to know, why do you not give their names now?
The danger. I mean, they are geographically close to myself.
To you. I see.
Yes.
Okay.
And they are nasty. So there's no reason to poke them like that when protection could be easily arranged.
I mean, I think from my point of view, just as a lawyer, I mean, Lord knows I haven't practiced law in a long time, as you guys know, but if you presume that the witness is telling the truth, and we certainly think he is, if you assume that, then the reasons he would fear for his safety are quite obvious. You're dealing with bad feds. I mean, one of the things that I've come upon in this case and other things, it's becoming clear to me that a big problem in the law enforcement bureaucracy and intel bureaucracy and other parts of the U.S. government bureaucracy is that the government works out of necessity with too many people who have been on the other side of the law. And now you're seeing with Seth, we're bringing too many bad people into government because, take the DEA. They can't chase the Mexican drug lords unless they get people who know that scene and have been involved with them, et cetera. The agency does the same thing. This is becoming a big problem in the United States, I think.
Luke, Alex Nazarian, Yahoo News. Did you know these gentlemen, these two, alleged perpetrators beforehand? And in general, how did you come upon this information? It seems odd that they would be discussing a plot like this in a way that an outsider could hear it.
Not an outsider. I've known them for several years and worked with them for just as long.
But they would discuss this openly, or sort of with knowing that you were aware of the plan but not involved in it?
Yeah, because of what everyone else was doing in this group. This was, like I said, the core group. Comfortable discussing anything, even sort of bragging about it. So my role was on the other side of it, but it was the same group. So yes, they were comfortable with it. So we've been to each other's homes. It's that level without getting further into it.
Let me kind of anticipate the follow-up question from the reporter here, and that is, if you, I lost my train of thought. Well, you follow.
Did they ever ask you to become involved in this?
No, this was done on their side. They're okay. Like I said, I specialize in the terrorist side of things, finance side, not computer and the other things.
Oh, it came to me. Here, it finally comes back to me. Why would they be comfortable? Why do you surmise they would be comfortable in bragging?
One, because they're dumb enough to do it, but because it's just a small group. The things that were normally discussed, the other crimes that they were perpetrating, this was not even the largest. I don't mean that sound cold, but you're talking about people who are engaging in money laundering, espionage, sedition, treason. So this was not the top of the list.
Are you saying these people may have been involved, or indeed they were involved in other kinds of crimes?
Yes.
Can you...
How they came under the purview of Rod Rosenstein, because they had done this throughout their career. They've been in trouble within their own departments. They've long ago been out of the agency had got certain things happen and kept them in there. They were beholden to him.
Other questions?
We've had these periodic bursts of information about Seth Rich that often seem to coincide with other really significant events. We had Mike Flynn at a status hearing this morning. We've got Peter Strzok testifying on Thursday. Why did you choose the second anniversary of the death to release this information?
Well, we did it to honor Seth and his family, because I felt the second anniversary would be an appropriate time to do that. That was the reason for my choosing. I chose this date a while back.
But you said the family is unhappy with you. Why do you continue to do things to?
Oh, because they're not my guiding light. I mean, I want to solve this, and I have to push on until I do.
Jack, this has been seized on by a lot of adherents of the QAnon conspiracy theory. Are you aware of that? Does Luke have any thoughts on that as an intelligence operative?
Luke, the question was as to the QAnon theory, which I know very little about. Do you, any thoughts on your end?
I don't follow Q. The few little things that I've seen from him that deal with Rod Rosenstein or something within my view were not necessarily correct or interpreted incorrectly from what I knew, so I didn't give it any attention.
Additionally, Jack, you're known as a pretty publicity savvy, perhaps, guy. You're always throwing press conferences. What would you say to people who say, "Look, this is just Jack Berkman trying to promote his own career, frankly, off a dead young man," despite the family's wishes?
Look, I understand why people would say that, but I just have to push on. Like I said, the press are our partners. We need your help. It's only through press coverage that we can go A to B to C to D. Hopefully from today's coverage, we'll get somebody else come forward and somebody else come forward and somebody else come forward. That's the way this has worked from the beginning. With a case like this, I don't know any other way to do it. My initial thought, Will, was that a reward would be enough, and I encouraged others to do rewards, and they did. It got up over, I think it's $455,000. My initial thought 2 years ago is that would be plenty, and this thing will solve quickly, because initially I thought the DC police were right. When no one came forward, and this thing clearly moved into the cold case file, I had to look at other theories.
I have a question. Luke, this is a question for you. I'm Manuel Franzi with the Washington Post. I wanted to go back to Will's very first question, which I thought was a very good question, which I don't think was really answered. I'm a little bit puzzled about why you think anyone would believe you. And therefore, I was hopeful that you might provide us with some piece of information, some document, or something else to support the claim that you have special information about this.
I understand, and like I said over the phone, it'd be difficult. Once this is investigated by someone, it's easy to find me. It's easy to find me in the documents. It's easy to find me working with these people, standing next to these people. It was easy to do. Difficult over the phone. When, like I said, when there's safety and there's an official investigation, it'll be very simple.
I think the short answer, Manuel, it's probably more a question for me than him. This is the first part. This is only the first step in a process. We're planning other things. This is the kickoff of this. Like I said, it's not the end, it's the beginning of the end. We're planning other things.
Yeah, it's just, for us to put a lot of credibility into what you're saying, Jack brought up the notion of him being an attorney and the way that witnesses are questioned. And one of the ways that witnesses are questioned is to establish their credibility. And I haven't heard you say something that establishes your credibility, and I think that's what Will's question was directed at, and it's certainly the question that I think would be paramount in anybody else's mind who was listening to this. And so you're saying that there are documents, and I guess we would say, or I would say, I can't speak for others, show us the documents.
Certainly. I understand, and I will to the investigation. The best I can tell you from now on the phone is check what I've said. It's easy enough to check, it's easy enough to verify a lot of this and prove it. Places you had looked for and start connecting the dots, but I can't do it without the safety. There's not just myself involved.
And check what?
Check the Russian connection, check the people out, check the information about the murder, how it actually happened. I mean, they discuss details, what they did and how he crawled away. I'll tell you if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to verify some of this and go from there But I can't just spill everything down. I can't produce my DD-214.
Well, can you give us those? Can you give us details of that night, if you would? As long as I don't, can you? What can you tell us?
Yeah, I said these are from several conversations with them, or in front of them, or around them. There were 3 involved that night. The 2 were waiting near his home. 1 was following. Now, they had been watching on and off for a week and a half to 2 weeks prior to this. They've been waiting for hours. This was getting late. DC wakes up early. They were upset that it had gone so long. They thought this would be sometime in the night. They got the call. He was headed home. And they immediately went from half asleep to up on adrenaline. The 2 of them got out. They approached him from behind. Did a normal stop. Get on your knees. Cross your ankles. Hands behind your head. They couldn't identify him. They wanted to make sure they had the right person. One covered him from behind. The other approached up on his right side. They had to get almost even with him because his arms were up behind his head. They got up almost even with him. He got his head turned. They looked at him. It's him. They shot him in the ribs. Fell off to his left. He tried to scrabble away. They, in deference to any family maybe listening, will tone it down, but they ridiculed him in a sexual manner about being on his knees and dying on his knees. Going forward, they shot him again. I don't know where that one was. They rolled over, took a thumb drive, left. Thumb drive went to a computer expert after that.
They boasted about all these details?
It was multiple conversations. The ones they talked mostly about were how he tried to crawl away. That was pathetic. He was on his knees, that type of thing.
You just said, again, can you tell us what was on that thumb drive, please?
I don't know. I don't know what was on the thumb drive. I don't know if they were able to get into it, or I knew the first person that they took it to either could not get into it or couldn't get what they wanted off of it because it went to the computer expert I know. And I don't know what was on it.
Now, Luke, let me ask you a question to follow up here. Did they, this is Jack, did they take the thumb drive from him after they shot him?
Yes, they rolled him over, took it out of his pocket, patted him down, took it, left.
I see.
Luke, I heard you, I think, say that you had taken a polygraph regarding the matter. Can you expand on the circumstances of that?
This was prior to providing information about myself and about this we're discussing to the House Intelligence Committee. But there was more than one and passed with great scores. You know? They said you can put it in a textbook and teach off of it. They were so steady.
Now, did you, just to the extent you can say, did you discuss this matter of Seth with the House Intelligence Committee?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Jack, let me check the letter, make sure it's on.
We don't want to lose, we're having technical difficulties here. Bear with us, Luke.
Jack,
Wait a minute. Oh, wait, here we go.
So many of the people involved in this story have been involved in lawsuits. Ed Batowski suing Rod Wheeler, hiring Rod Wheeler. What's your involvement, if any, with Ed Batowski?
None. None. I think I talked to him once long ago, but that's, I don't really know him.
Why do you think he's so interested in this matter?
You know, I don't know. I know in the lawsuit, I believe in the Wheeler lawsuit, there's some mention of me related to that, but I don't really know what it is. Honestly, I haven't followed that stuff. I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't know.
I can answer that question.
Tell me.
I'm not gonna,
Frank, go ahead, please.
I don't want to get into details, but, you know, America First Media and a number of other people are getting sued by the Rich family and Brad Bauman. The suits are online. You could read them. That's, you know, that's the nexus of why they're suing. And we really can't discuss that at this time, you know, for obvious reasons.
Hey, Luke, can you again explain what you think they thought was on that thumb drive? You talked about Seth discovering federal workers manipulating emails.
No, not exactly. Whatever he discovered, something with the election this, election that, I don't know. But when he scooped up all those emails, basically downloaded a great big portion, it sent off all the alarms that they had in place. And to them, it looked like an investigation. They wanted to know who, why was it this close, that type of thing. So they started the surveillance. But having such a large number of emails that they had altered in some fashion, manipulated, delayed, whatever they did to each one, or to some of them, you can alter the entire tone of the email by changing one word or classification. But he had such a large number that if something happened, if that got out, people would be poring over it and they could discover the pattern, how it was altered, how it was done. It was too much of a risk.
And you talk about the emails that he downloaded allegedly from the DNC?
Correct.
There were reports that an FBI van was robbed the same night Seth Rich was killed and that a weapon was stolen from that van. Is that pertinent to Seth Rich's death or how he was murdered?
Not as far as I know.
Following up on that, Elisa, that may be more of a question for me. I think we were, actually, it was Kevin Doherty who discovered that while he was working for us a year ago. One of the things I said to the chief of police and the mayor is, one of the reasons we desperately need the ballistics report is we need to know if those weapons that were stolen from the FBI, I think 61 minutes before Seth was shot, were the ones used. And that's a big reason why we need ballistics. And no one will help us.
So are you guys saying that Kevin Doherty was trying to get onto this Rod Rosenstein team and then separately was hired by you, Jack?
Well, I don't, yes, I mean, I think that's a good synopsis of what was said. I'm kind of the unwitting fool. I didn't know, Kevin Doherty had a decent resume. I should have vetted him more. It turns out almost none of it was correct. I still think he did good work for us. Many of you read the 81-page report he did on this. I think it was fine detective work, frankly, and he did a lot of good investigative work. I think what Luke, just a synopsis of what Luke is saying, is Doherty was associated with, trying to be friends with, hanging out with the two people who did this shooting. And so that just leads me to wonder why he joined our team, et cetera, et cetera. Did he plant himself? Did someone plant him there? We don't know. We're looking into all that.
Jack, you had said that Glenn Seelig had vetted him first. Is that not correct?
Yes, but I don't know. That's true. He initially came to Glenn, who's sadly no longer with us. But there was some vetting done. Obviously, it wasn't enough. And I don't think, my personal feeling is none of his resume is true, but I don't know that.
Do you think this has to do with how Glenn got killed?
We don't know. I just don't know. I wish I knew, Alicia. Unfortunately, I just don't know. I don't know.
Can I add something?
Please.
I wanted to add something regarding Doherty. Doherty, around July 7th, contacted members of America First Media Group and was in dialogue after he was let go by Jack to try and get into our group after that. And that's what kind of piqued our information when he was arrested by the Arlington police, for shooting Jack. It set off all bells to us. And one other thing, there's a phone call from Cy Hirsch on America First Media's site, which he has some kind of a source. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He says that Seth was killed for what he found out, not for what he took.
I've got to interrupt you. I met with Cy Hirsch personally. He told me that recording was made without his knowledge. He had had a few drinks and it was not representative of what he actually said that night. Ed Butowski made that recording. And there are other recordings of Ron Wheeler that Ed Butowski has made that I detected audio editing in.
Right. Well, I'm just saying what's out there. Whether you dispute it or not, that's for you guys to do.
Right.
I'm still confused about the polygraph, Luke. Who had you take the polygraph, when, why, and if you have the results of that, I guess that would be another document we would want to see.
Can you speak to that, Luke? Was it House Intel? Is there anything you can tell Manuel of the Post about that?
Thank you. It was prior to giving the information to House Intel. It was in relation to a previous case I had started, worked on, and went from there into referee and dealt with some of the issues that touched on what these people were doing. So because it was unusual, I was polygraphed on everything.
Can you tell us, are you comfortable telling Manuel who polygraphed you?
Secret Service.
U.S. Secret Service.
Is there a way to verify that?
And the follow-up question is there a way to verify that?
I'm sure House Intel has it. I don't want to keep relying on that like I'm dodging a question, but it is available. They have it.
Now, let me ask you this, and again, don't answer anything you're not comfortable answering. We first and foremost, your safety, your family's safety, but tell me, Secret Service, can you tell me how they were involved with House Intel, and is there anything you can say in broad strokes about that?
They help with some of the computer things. That's
Okay.
all I'm going to say.
Okay.
They help prove some of the computer items I was talking about.
I see.
They have a very good system.
Luke, quick question. You said the night of the murder, the assailants became frustrated with how long it took to actually get a hold of Seth. Seth was a known drinker and bar hopper. Why would they have been frustrated knowing that he was going to go from bar to bar?
I don't know anything about it. I don't know if he drank or not.
He was on the street by 1:45 that night. That's not late for a drinker.
Okay. They were frustrated more of having to wait at his home for hours.
You said they followed him for 2 weeks.
Off and on, yes.
He was a nightly drinker.
Okay.
They would have known his program. No?
Did they? I don't know. Did they? Were they
Well, if I followed you for 2 weeks, I'd know your program.
All right. I can't answer that.
Okay.
Were they waiting for him to be drunk?
Jack, I have a question. I didn't realize it's been going on for a while. Luke, what are these noises in the background? There's like a lot of like scuffling. I'm wondering, are you in like a strange location? Are you like hiding, or what's up?
Yeah, you can say hiding, just for safety. The noises you'll hear are, I actually work a type of security right now. So you'll hear an automatic door.
Thank you.
Luke, previously you said you were at work, so you are at work, or where are you at?
Yes.
When's the last time you've been in contact with the two alleged murderers?
Alleged murderers,
3.
about a year. Other people involved, 3 or 4 months. One of them 2 weeks ago.
I'm puzzled about something else, Luke. You said that you don't want to poke these people by identifying them by name, but you're being recorded by many people. Your voice is now going to be readily available on the internet. You've had contact with them within the last 2 weeks. How is that any different than identifying them by name? And wouldn't you be putting yourself at just as much danger by doing this news conference?
Actually more danger, because if he identified them by name and came forward, everybody would know who he is.
Let's get these on the voice.
It's possible. I knew that this conference wasn't without danger. It's been dangerous all along, but without getting it out there, without getting House Intelligence moving or someone, official investigation, there's never going to be a resolution. It'll just stay this incredibly tense, dangerous situation. So,
Luke, did you think about using a voice scrambler for this interview? Are you on a voice scrambler?
Doesn't matter.
Sure it does.
Well, I think if I could add my perspective to this, what I would say is I think Luke has a passionate desire to do the right thing. I think that's what's driving this.
Following up on what Jason said, wouldn't you be safer making your identity known and doing a public press interview and naming these people? Because then if something happens to you, everybody knows who you are and you've come out in a public way. I mean, isn't it more dangerous to not do that? And if something happens to you now, we can't verify you. We don't know who you are.
people do know who I am, and the House Intelligence knows who I am. Coming out publicly, he said if something happens, then what? You can identify the body? It's done what we can.
Well,
Trying to get awareness, or trying to get people to step up, ask for an investigation, ask for something official, get House Intelligence moving. None of this is without danger.
Right, but Jack has, what do you say, $400,000? He could hire some security, right?
No, well, it's not, 400 is not mine, 105 of it's mine, 455 is the total amount going through.
105 is enough to hire private security for a while.
Well, look, we've talked to Luke about those things. I think here's the bottom line. I'd certainly be willing to make an effort to protect him and his family. The bottom line is I think he has legitimate security concerns through all this, as anybody would. What's
the status with the House Intelligence Committee in Congress, and why aren't they acting? What's the status of that?
Good question.
I would like to know. I'd very much like to know.
Luke, did you know anything about he's no longer in Congress, from Texas, Blake Farenthold? Wasn't he going to start a group?
Question is, Blake Farenthold, who recently left Congress, he's a member of member of the House from Texas, had summoned. The question is, do you know anything about his involvement in the Seth case?
No.
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
I'm not with the press officially. I used to be a stringer for the Prince George's County
That's okay.
But I am a member of a Facebook group that cares a lot about justice for Seth Rich. And I've seen I know a lot about you, Mr. Bergman. My name is Shoshana. What about post-murder of Seth Rich research, like hospital records at Washington Hospital Center, police records, the fact that the head of police, the woman, she resigned right after the murder of Seth Rich. That seems suspicious to me. And I used to know one of the heads of surgery at Washington Hospital Center, because when he was an emergency surgeon at Suburban, he gave me an appendix, took out my appendix. And I know who he is, and I've been trying to get in touch with him, and he will not return my phone calls. He's now at Montgomery General in Albany. Would that be fruitful to try to talk to him to see if he knew if there was any political garbage going on with why they won't release the records at Washington Hospital Center? Because of, I've been studying this a long time. Perhaps politically, people like Podesta's wives are on boards of hospitals in Washington, and the society business part of Washington. I'm not part of that. They have to keep quiet because of that. Or benefits to the DC police they have to be muffled in giving out records because benefits to certain police officers who are about to retire could be jeopardized. I'm very diamond in the rough about what I'm saying.
I think just a series of questions from Shoshana, a bunch of questions wrapped up into one. Good questions about asking whether you know anything about his medical treatment the night he was shot. Do we know anything about the doctors? Do we know anything at all about what happened after he was shot? Is that something you...
Webcams, too. Why aren't they being released?
Do you know anything about after he was shot?
Only that they had taken the thumb drive to their expert left the area. Anything that happened to the hospital or anything, I don't.
Where did they take the thumb drive?
Where did they take the thumb drive, the question is?
To their computer expert.
To their computer expert.
How about the FBI?
Question is, did they share it with the FBI? Did they give it to what law enforcement did they share it with?
The thumb drive?
Yes.
With themselves.
Yeah, because in other words, because they. Yeah, I think the answer is Luke's perspective is they were afraid of the contents of this, and that's why this occurred.
What kind of documents do you have that's going to substantiate your claims? What kind of documents?
There were photographs, me and people, there were cases, me and them working together, documents on his way, phone calls. I document a list, an idea of overall everything has been turned over to House Intelligence as well.
Do you have recorded conversations that you might have had with the alleged murderers?
The question from Alicia is, do you have recorded conversations with any of these people?
I already decided whether to answer it.
I don't think can you say that? Luke, I don't think we heard you, sorry.
I'm deciding whether
Oh, I see, sure.
I don't want to answer that one right now.
No comment on that.
Jack, what do you say to people who call you a conspiracy theorist?
You know, the word conspiracy is much overused. I'm just looking at facts, looking at data, trying to solve this murder any way we can. I'm just a lawyer looking for evidence.
I get that, but there are people who are not, they're not just persuaded by the facts. They're not persuaded by the way that you're stringing facts together and for your motives. I mean, how do you dig a little deeper? Tell me why this is important to do outside MPD and...
Well, I think it's pretty simple. My belief is they're just not doing anything, and it's an important issue, and somebody has to do it, so we're doing it. I don't know that it's any more complex than that. I mean, I think, like I said, from my point of view, this could have happened to any one of the young people who work for me, Democrats and Republicans, and I have both. And so for that reason, I want to do some good.
And you're still working with the profiling project?
Yes, it's now called the Profiling Investigative Center, but yes, that's my group. Correct.
You being a lawyer, have you tried to subpoena records?
I wish I had subpoena power, but I'm not a judge. I wish I had, if I had subpoena power, I would use it. Lord, no, Lord, I wish I could.
Didn't you try to get?
We sued the city. We sued the mayor and the chief of police, trying desperately to get the coroner's report, to get the ballistics report, and to get the second Flagler video, but judge threw it out.
If you go to the Department of Vital Statistics for DC, what would you get on Seth Rich?
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, he was buried in Nebraska, right?
Yes. I'll give you an illustration of how difficult this has become. The police would not even share with me or with anyone the hospital to which Seth was taken on that fateful night.
It was Howard and then Washington Hospital.
Yes,
right?
but we had to. It was the George Washington Hospital. The reason
it was GW.
It was GW. The reason. Yes, the reason I found that out is we found a contractor. A health contractor, one of my clients led me to a health contractor who was working there, and we got that information from them. No one would share that with us. It took us 6 months to find that. It was GW Hospital.
That's probably a more political place than Howard.
I want to speak to an issue of credibility. I don't mean to hijack this, but Jack is my mother's husband and has been since 2009. My mother is Susan Brewer Berkman, and for the last 3 months, off and on, I've lived literally in the basement of his house at 1599 Colonial Terrace.
David, excuse me.
With a Glock in my hand.
David, excuse me, please.
Sure.
I think thank you for that. But Luke, I think we have exceeded your time. Frank is telling me you. Can we get one more? We're going to get.
I just care about the safety of my mother, and so if I thought that this was a lie perpetrated on y'all,
not give out the address.
I would go to great.
Oh, it's publicly known. Doesn't matter.
Because I care about her safety as much as I love Jack, even more than his.
You're kind. One more. I think final question.
Luke, why did these men have to kill Seth? Why was murder necessary?
Question is why was the murder necessary? In other words, I guess the question, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the reporter's asking, couldn't they have just thrown him on the ground, beaten him up, and taken the thumb drive? I guess that's the question. Why the killing?
They left the jewelry, right?
I can't speak for exactly what was going through their mind, but if he was left alive, he could have downloaded it again. He could have, maybe he went through everything and knew what was on it. You don't know. I mean, that's what I said. Compared to the other crimes involved in, this was not that big on the list. So, I mean, if he had it online somewhere, if he could have just gone to the same place, downloaded it. Again, it wouldn't have solved anything.
One thing I would say to keep in mind, this is just my perspective on all this. If, as the DC police allege, this was in the street and street thugs did it, expensive gold chain, nice watch, cash, credit cards, none of that taken. None of that taken. It seems obvious to me that they wanted something else. What could this have been? Okay, let's assume the DC police are correct and it's in the street. Why would he be shot twice in the back? Seth Rich was many things. He wasn't a frightful, fearsome dude. If they came upon him and there was a scuffle, I don't think anybody was worried that these thugs weren't worried that Seth was going to chase him down the street. That theory doesn't hold a lot of water.
My daughter's high school, mine too, BCC, if you steal an iPhone, it's called the crime of opportunity. There's plenty of opportunity there to make some, to go to the pawn shop with.
Well, guys, I have to honor my commitment to Luke. Luke, thank you. I know you have to go. We thank you for all your time today. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate your opportunity and all the work that Mr. Couch and Frank Wellen and his team have done on this.
We're very thankful.
They got a little close to these people. These people started talking about them, and that's why I contacted them to head that off.
Well, we thank you, Luke, and keep doing the right thing, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Thank you. Anything else, guys?
How's your group at GW doing?
Oh, they are no longer with us. No longer with us.
Okay, Jason, I think that wraps
Thank you,
it up.
everyone.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about that at all, Doctor?
My comments on it are the following. First of all, the skepticism of the people in the room is validated or justified because we don't know who this guy is, Luke. And he won't come forward, and he won't basically identify himself. Now, if it's true, the story's true, he better get himself some protection pretty quickly. He better get a law enforcement involvement because these assailants are going to know who he is now, and he's talking. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of these pieces just don't fit together to me. I mean, conceivably, Seth Rich had another thumb drive that contained information he'd not yet released to Assange. But, his death was so close to the release of the information from Assange that Seth Rich had to have sometime earlier gotten his original material from hacking into, really leaking out of the server in the DNC. That information was long gone to Assange. So by getting this thumb drive, they weren't getting they weren't stopping him from having the release of the information.
Doctor, to me, the contents of this press conference seem somewhat ridiculous. What would you say your overall take is on what we just heard here?
Well, I mean, first of all, any of these things you can't just dismiss because people come forward with various stories, and in a typical journalistic or law enforcement investigation, you've got to listen to them. And then the question is, can what they're saying be validated in any way? Now, this guy didn't give enough information that it could be validated one way or the other. I mean, certainly the involvement of Rosenstein, Seth Rich's murder, if it's true, it's going to be explosive. That alone is going to be a major issue that merits investigation. But all these people who come forward, Montgomery, Binney, all the people who have had information, Assange, none of these, Snowden, none of these people of our government taken seriously or wanted to tell the public their story. They've all been suppressed. And my guess is House intelligence is not going to validate. They talked with Luke, and Secret Service is not going to validate that they did a lie detector test. So basically, if it's true, Luke has just put himself in danger, and there's no real way for any of us to validate any of it. It's an intriguing story as it is. It's another rabbit chase, but it's going to be very hard to validate until we know who the people are.
I agree, Doctor. It just it seems like another thread to pull on, and there are so many in this case of Seth Rich, we'll just have to keep watching and see if we learn anything. We have really no indications of any kind of official investigation. We still have not seen an autopsy, a death certificate, a ballistics report. All of these are things that Rod Wheeler, former DC Metro Police detective, told us never happened. So, Doctor, I want to thank you for joining me today
And
on
one
this.
more thing.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
one more thing. I think what you've got here is clearly. I mean, the one conclusion you can come out of the Seth Rich case from is that it's a cover-up. Yeah. The Washington police, probably under pressure from the federal government, are not making this case easy to investigate by the public. They want it shut down. Family wants it shut down. Oh, and so, my point of view, the story we've been told officially, which has no explanation for who shot Seth Rich, is completely bogus at this point. I don't see anything in the official story that really makes any sense. Now, whether this makes sense or not, you can't tell from today's press conference. But it's going to, play out in the next few days to see whether Luke gives any more information, whether it does get under investigation. If Luke told the truth today and put everybody on notice where the assailants, he knows about it, they're not going to have a hard time figuring out who Luke is.
We heard his voice quite clearly, as was pointed out. So, I mean, again, as you said, a lot of it doesn't add up for me. I feel like this didn't move us forward very much today, and I hope I'm wrong, but we'll keep watching, Doctor. I'm sorry to cut you short, but I am running low on battery power here, and I appreciate you sticking around.
I think you were letting us all see it was probably the only recording made of the entire press conference, and I'll look forward to it being archived up on your website, because I think at least it can be examined in more detail, replayed, and see if there's anything in it that comes out. But my conclusion here is, this is interesting and merits further investigation, and given the cover-up that's in place, I'm not sure how much this is going to be officially followed up at all.
I agree. There's so much for you and I to continue talking about, and I think we can do that in our...
I hope this at least moves the House Intelligence Committee further ahead, and I think the issue of Rosenstein and his involvement in Maryland needs to be much more investigated anyway.
Yeah.
And Rosenstein remains increasingly as apparent as the figure at the center of this thing in terms of a cover-up.
Right.
Both in the role in Maryland and his role currently. And so, I think the pressure on Rosenstein is going to intensify as a result of this press conference, but I'm not sure. It's an intriguing alternative explanation of how Seth Rich was killed, but, I hesitate to encourage anybody that it deserves, credence until it can be verified. We don't have enough today to verify it. That's my major conclusion.
And I know you don't agree with my assessment in this regard, Doctor, but I remain unconvinced that Seth Rich was even killed. There is a really troubling lack of evidence and standard procedure, and I just feel like this is coming out every time something major is happening, and that it just smells like some sort of disinformation operation from the beginning to me. But
this is not going to get very much coverage. I mean, Gateway Pundit covered it. You had the Washington Post there, the Daily Beast. They can be expected to trash this. It's just going to be more conspiracy theory nonsense. So it's not going to enter into the official narrative in any major way.
No.
We go much more. The official narrative is being driven right now by the Inspector General. And there's enough there to, I think, retire Mueller with a biased investigation and violations of due process, and ultimately to get a new special prosecutor to do the job. I don't think justice will investigate itself. I think it'll only continue the cover-up. that's probably one of the more disturbing aspects of this today is that I'm even further convinced that Justice Department has no intention at all of allowing American people to get to the truth of any of this.
Well, at least we can count on them for that, Doctor, if nothing else.
Okay, Jason, thanks for
joining
covering
me.
this today, and thanks for allowing us to watch the entire conference. Well done.
Thank you, Doctor. Lovely to have you on this first mobile Skype broadcast. Thank you, Dr. Corsi. People should subscribe to Jerome Corsi on YouTube, and you can find him on Twitter as well. Just search for Jerome Corsi. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to remind everyone that Crowdsource the Truth is a community-sponsored news resource. I couldn't come to these types of press conferences without your support. So please go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and become a sponsor. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.